Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to use Leonardo AI's image and video generations, but to do it at scale using automations on make.com. So a quick look at the image generation. There's some great scenes here of kind of sceneries on a lake. There's some nice marketplace scenes here. So then we've taken those images and we've generated some videos off the back of it. So we've used Leonardo's capabilities to add motion. They work quite well. And then finally, we'll be using the upscale capability where I upload an image that I took years ago that I only have a very low res version of it, and it's able to generate quite a realistic high res version of that. So that's very impressive. So all of that will be going through in this video. If you want access to these make.com blueprints so you can import them at the click of a button, check out the link in the description to our community, where you'll get access to these as well as lots of others. So there's a lot of tech packed into Leonardo AI's platform. And unlike a lot of its competitors, you can access it via an official API. So by clicking on Developer API on their homepage, it gives you a rundown of what's available, and you can see the various plans and how many credits you get per plan. For the moment, I've signed up to the API basic plan. So to get started, you just pick a plan, fill out the form, and then you'll get an API key that you can start integrating with. When you're logged into the web app, you can see a lot of the tools that are available, and most of these are also available via the API. I'll also be showing you how you can use the webhooks, as well as just using a wait facility to wait for the generation to take place on the server. So when you sign up to your API plan, if you click on API access here, you'll be able to create keys. So there's two different types of production API keys. The first one is where you don't include a callback URL, and then if that's the case, it just triggers the response based off the request. Whereas if you do include a webhook callback, then that response will just complete, and then it'll hit this URL when it's finished processing. I'll show you both in a couple of minutes. Okay, so first up, let's look at the image creation or the image generation. So as I mentioned, I'm using make.com for this. So I've got a number of scenarios here that I'm going to go through. So the first one is the image generation using the Phoenix model. And this scenario works as follows. Okay, so firstly, we just set an API key in a variable. Then we're going to go to ChatGPT and we're just going to get it to generate a random image prompt. So I'm just saying, following best practices, output a rich image prompt. Make sure to mention the camera angle as well as the image style. We're going to get it to output in JSON using this structure just because we want a highly structured output. And we're just looking for a random image. And then you just need to make sure you set response format as JSON object, and then that will spit out what you need. So next up then, we need to use a parse JSON module, which parses the kind of text response we get back from OpenAI, and it brings it into kind of a structure that we can use within make.com. So next up then, we're getting it to trigger an image. So let me jump in here. So we're using a make a basic auth request module in Make. It requires you to set credentials, but you can just set empty credentials. So this is what I have set for my basic auth key. We're setting the API key here in the header, so we don't need it as part of these credentials. So for image generation, we're going to hit the generations endpoint. We're going to post to it. We've set the authorization, which is bearer space API key, and we're going to accept application JSON. So then in terms of the body that we're sending, it's a raw JSON, and this is the content. Now, this is based on the documentation. So if we just jump in here to the Getting Started docs, if you click on image generation, the first one here is generate images using Leonardo's Phoenix model, and it gives us a sample structure that we can use. And that I've literally just copied and pasted this into this request content area, but I'm dynamically injecting the prompt that I'm getting back from ChatGPT. Obviously, you could set this up differently, however way you want to integrate it into your workflows. So I'm looking for 4 images here. You can change widths and heights and contrast, etc. And that's it. We're going to parse the response we get back, so we can click OK to that. So I mentioned webhooks a minute ago. So for this one, we're not going to use a webhook. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sleep for 60 seconds. So the process is going to wait until a minute, and then the response should have generated on the server. This isn't foolproof. If there was delays on the server, it might go past 60 seconds and it might not return anything. So the webhook is definitely a better solution, but this works for the vast majority of cases. Cool. So after the minute then, we're going to fetch the result, which is hitting this endpoint. So rest/v1/generations, and then we're injecting the generation ID that we've set here in this module. Again, we're passing authentication headers. Also, this is a get method. We don't need to send a body for this. We're just hitting this endpoint with the authorization headers. And then from there, again, we're going to parse what we get back. And because we're looking for 4 images, we need to work through an iterator. So we're going to work through 4 different images. For each, we're going to download them, which is simply just hitting that URL that we're getting, well, the iterator is extracting from the JSON. So that's set at the iterator level. So I'll show you this when I run it in a second. And then once we download it, we're then just going to upload it to Google Drive. And I have a test folder set up here, testing Leonardo image. And I believe I have a few of them already. So these are the ones you saw a minute ago in the Leonardo console. Okay, let's trigger it and let's see how it runs. So save that and click run. Okay, so we've generated the prompt and let's jump in and have a look at it. Candid street scene depicting a vibrant marketplace from a low angle. So that's what OpenAI has suggested. So then that has, again, we're just getting back text from OpenAI, but because we were looking for that JSON mode and that JSON format, we can parse it into a structure like so. And then we can reference it using prompt as a variable. So then trigger image generation, we have passed that prompt. So you can see the request content here, and there is the prompt. And we're looking for 4 images. And all we're getting back from this is a generation ID. So it's just responding straight away with a generation ID. So then we're going to wait for 60 seconds as those 4 images generate on the server. Again, webhooks are probably a better solution here, but this works most of the time. Okay, that's finished the sleep cycle. Let's look at the result. Click on data, and yeah, there's lots of data there. So now all of this, again, this is just text, so that's why we're going to parse it. So that is parsed there. And it's now in a kind of a structured format for make.com to use. And there's an array here of generated images that we're now going to iterate over. So that's what's happening here. And you can see then you have, we're in a single execution cycle here. So we have 1, 1, 1. But the minute we trigger this iterator, we're now into 4 because it's 4 images. So this ran 4 times operations for each. So then we were downloading the file. So you can see in the first operation, we downloaded it. And what it's doing is it's downloading it to make.com in binary format. And then we're just going to upload that straight away without really doing anything with it into Google Drive. So that has been successful. And we have our images uploaded. And let's have a look at them. Just refresh there. And there are the 4 images of the market scene. And yeah, not too bad. Some of the faces are a little bit messed up, but not too bad. Cool. So that is the image generation workflow. And as you can see, that works pretty well. You can, of course, change, you could tie this into your own kind of, Airtables or Google Sheets to generate images or whatever your kind of automation is. Then the other thing is you can also mess around with the parameters when generating the image to kind of change dimensions or contrast or whatever else. So yeah, that's the first scenario then. So the second one then is we're going to use a webhook. So as I mentioned, sleeping isn't necessarily kind of the best approach if there are delays on the server. And also something might only take 5 seconds to generate, so there's no point in waiting around for a minute. So for this one, we're going to create a webhook. So let me just jump out of that and then jump into integration webhooks. And let's have a look at the first one. So here we've created a webhook, and this is as simple as just add a module webhooks, custom webhook. And then once you click OK, that will create your custom webhook. So this is very simple. Once you create a new scenario on make.com, let me just do it very quickly here. If you have a webhook set as your first module, set in a custom webhook, all you need to do is click the create a webhook button and it'll give you the URL. So it really couldn't be simpler, and it's a very powerful kind of solution. So I've done that and it's given me this URL. And then what I did was I copied it to my clipboard, and then on Leonardo AI, when I was creating my API key, somewhere here. Yeah, so when I was creating my API key, so let's call this the webhook key, you just drop in that URL there and click generate. And then that gives you an API key that you can then inject into the request to Leonardo APIs. And once you pass that specific API key into the request, it will always hit your webhook in response, as opposed to you needing to poll the service to fetch the results. So the only trick then with the webhook kind of approach to this is that you need 2 scenarios. So the first scenario is we need to send the request, and the second scenario is we need to catch the response. So we can see here in the webhook version, again, we're setting an API key. We're we're still doing our OpenAI, create a random image prompt, and then we're still sending that into the image generator. But this time we're passing an API key that has that webhook URL set. So let's just run that. And now that's generating the prompt, and it's going to send it to Leonardo AI. And then on the second scenario, I'm just running it, and now I'm waiting for Leonardo AI server to hit this webhook and follow down the path to allow me to download the file and upload it to Google Drive. That's great. So that job has finished. So that's pretty much the same thing as the first version, except we're using webhooks. So we have two scenarios, one to send the request and one to receive the response. And if we just refresh here, we should have our new images. And that looks great, actually. Yeah, very nice and hyper realistic. That is brilliant. Really nice. Great. So that is the webhook version. So then let's get out of that. So we've done image generation using the Phoenix model in kind of the standard method where we poll for a response or wait for a response. We've now done the two where we send it and then receive it as a webhook. So next, let's look at image upscaling. So this is a nice feature on Leonardo's platform. If I just launch the app here, and if you come into universal upscale, yeah, it's possible to upload kind of low res images, and then it's able to multiply out the resolution by up to 2. There's also kind of variations of this. So there's one that kind of is a background remover. There's one that kind of has a zoom out feature, which is quite cool. So there's a few different settings for this kind of variation API. So let's get back in Make and jump into this image upscaling. So this is a slightly more complex scenario. So the first thing is we're going to upload an image. So there's a few ways of actually approaching image upscaling. So let me go to the API docs and then variation generation. Two things to note here as well. There's a lot of detail under guides, but there's even more detail under API reference. But your main options when it comes to upscaling is you can upscale with generated images on the Leonardo platform, or you upload your own images, which follows along with this script. So let's come back in here. So first things first, I've uploaded a test image. So let's go into upscale. So this is an image that I took like 20 years ago in San Francisco on a really old camera. And I only have this really low res version of this image. So what I want to do is via the API, I want to upscale this so that it's twice the resolution that it is. So for that, I've set up a Google Drive module where I'm simply just searching for this image and I download this image to make.com. So then I'm going to set a variable, which again is just going to be my API key. So the first step to this process is I need to get a pre-signed URL that I can forward my image to. So it's quite complicated, and you need to post your API key to it, which is what I've done there. And all I'm doing is I'm looking for an upload URL so that I can upload a JPEG, as you can see there. And that's it. All I'm doing is hitting this kind of initialization image or init image endpoint, passing my API key, and I'm just saying, give me a URL so that I can upload a JPEG. So I'm triggering that. I get a response, which I parse, because again, it's just going to be a string that I need to parse into JSON object. And then from there, I then have the URL, the pre-signed URL, or the secure URL, that I can then post my image to. So this is a bit different. This is a multi-part form data body as opposed to a JSON body. But what I'm doing is I'm setting all of the fields that I get in the response to this URL as the header in this request. It's the only way of doing it within Make. And then as well as all of those fields that we got from module 3 here that I'm passing in as headers, I'm also then passing in the file, which is the body essentially. And then that's the binary of the file that I got from Google Drive. So then that's how you upload the image. So then at this point, my low res image is now uploaded to Leonardo AI servers, but I haven't done anything yet. So I now need to trigger the generation of the upscaled image. So I'm hitting this universal upscaler API and I'm passing again, the headers to authenticate. And then in terms of the body, I'm passing the image ID that I get as a response to this, as well as kind of some parameters around the type of image I want to retrieve. So I want this upscaling to reflect a kind of a cinematic style, creativity strength at level 6, so you could play around with that. And I want an upscale multiplier of 2, so I want to double the resolution. So that's the trigger upscale generation. It's following the universal upscaler endpoint, which you can access on the documentation. So then we wait for 60 seconds. Again, I'm not using the webhook here. So I'm just waiting for 60 seconds for the image variation to be created, and then I'm fetching the result. This is hitting the variations endpoint as opposed to the generations endpoint. So that's that one, parse the JSON, and then I download the file and I upload it to Google Drive. So that's it. I'm only looking for a single image here, so there's no iterator. There's no need for that. So that's it. Let's run it and let's see how it goes. Have I retrieved the upload URL? I sure have, and there it is. So URL is it's an S3 Amazon AWS bucket with a very specific subdomain. A whole host of fields here as well. You can see them there, fields. So that's essentially what we're passing then in the header that you see here. So you can see headers. Nope, not that one. Yeah, all of these headers essentially is what I'm passing. Okay, the other thing is I'm not getting any response from this, but it has uploaded. So if you're getting a status code 204, it means it's a successful request. So you don't need anything else. So then I'm triggering the upscale, which you can see there, and I'm getting an ID for that job, waiting 60 seconds, and then I am passing that ID in the URL, which you can see there, and I'm getting this data back. So the job has been complete. I am then parsing it. So this is all of the information that I'm getting back. And now I have a URL to hit, to download, to upload to Google Drive. So let's refresh and see how it looks. So this is the, I triggered this a few minutes ago, and that is a 1.5 zoom, and this is 2x. So that's the original image. So that's pretty impressive, actually. That's quite a nice upscaled image. Now, I'm sure you could upscale it by 2x again. We'll see how that looks, but that's pretty good. I think originally it's around 400 pixels wide. That's now 800 or 900 pixels wide. Great, so that's the image upscaler. As I mentioned, copies of all of these blueprints are available in our community, so you can quickly and easily download them and then just import them at the click of a button. So check out the links below. So finally, let's look at the image to video feature, which is the motion feature within Leonardo API's platform. So for image to video, where we upload images, it's very similar to the upscaling version I just went through. So we're going to Google Drive and we're searching for input images that we want to turn into videos. And what we're doing is we're loading those images up. We're then again setting the variable, which is just the API key. And then for each of those images, we're getting upload URLs for each, exactly the same as what we did in the upscale scenario. So the init image endpoint has been hit, just passing the API keys, and we're looking for, again, request content. We're looking for a URL to upload a JPEG. And then from there, we upload the image based off the URL that we're getting back from this module. And again, we're setting all of those headers that we're getting back as the fields in this response. And then in terms of the file, we're uploading the Google Drive file. Then we're triggering the video generation. So the endpoint here is generations-motion-svd. So that is, if we go to the API docs, motion, create SVD motion generation. So this is the endpoint. And the other thing is, if you're struggling with make.com in terms of trying to pass the right parameters, you can always test out the URLs just by putting in your authentication, your API key there. And you can also put in the various parameters that you're testing out. Like here, I'm passing in, is like motion strength 3, is variation false. So you can add all of those in here and then just try it and see, does it work here? Because if it doesn't work here, it's not going to work in Make. So that's how you trigger the video generation. And then there's the tools where we're just sleeping for 60 seconds. We fetch the results, so we're passing the generation ID. This is a get call, so we're passing the generation ID in the URL. Again, that's detailed in the documentation. And then from there, we're downloading it and uploading it to Google Drive. So let's run it and let's see how it works. Okay, so have we got back 4 images? We sure have. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have got a load URL. Now this will run 4 times. There's 4 bundles. So if you look here, there's 4 bundles. So it's only shown 111 at the moment. But once the first run of this completes, it'll run them through again for the second bundle. So it has got 1 upload URL for the first image. It has then uploaded that image and it has triggered the video generation, which you can see there. There's the generation ID job. So that's what we're going to be fetching in a second or two. So that has generated and uploaded, and now it's running through the second bundle. So let's get out of that. jump into motion. Okay, so here's our first video to look at. That's quite nice, yeah. A nice zoom in, a slow kind of zoom in. So it really has done a great job of that. And it's currently generating the second one now. So that has finished as well, just uploading it. And let's have a look. Very good. I don't know what res that is. That obviously went full screen there. But yeah, that's quite nice. I like that. Yeah, so that's how the image to video works. And it's just working through the last two videos there. If you want access to any of these blueprints, as I mentioned, it's all available in the community. So check out the link in the description below, where you can access those automation templates as well as many others that we have. If this video has been helpful to you, then please give it a like below, subscribe to our channel for more content like this, and also check out our main channel where we go through full automation systems. Links for both are in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.